The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. I saw the caller ID and my heart stopped. It was Tommy's number. My son Tommy had been buried 20 years ago with that phone in his casket. His mother Sarah had insisted we bury him with it. Said he loved that old flip phone. Now, here I was, staring at those 10 digits lighting up my screen. My hands shook as I answered. A voice whispered 3 words that changed everything. Tommy wasn't dead. I need to take you back 20 years to understand what that phone call meant to me. Back then, I was Sean Morrison, 48 years old, owner of Morrison Construction, one of the largest contractors in Indianapolis. Life was good. No life was perfect. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 25 years. She was still beautiful at 46, with auburn hair that caught the light when she laughed. We had 2 boys, Tommy, 18, and Marcus, 16. They were as different as night and day, but they loved each other fiercely. Tommy was our golden child. 6 feet 2 inches tall, built like a linebacker, with my dark hair and Sarah's green eyes. He'd led his high school football team to state championships 2 years running. Full scholarship to State University waiting for him. The kid had everything going for him, including Jennifer Walsh, his girlfriend, since sophomore year. They'd gotten engaged just a week before graduation, planning to marry after college. Marcus was quieter, more thoughtful. While Tommy commanded attention on the football field, Marcus painted landscapes that made you want to step right into them. He spent hours in the garage I'd converted into his art studio. Tommy used to joke that Marcus saw colors the rest of us missed. Despite their differences, those boys were thick as thieves. The night everything changed was July 15th. Tommy had been out celebrating with friends. One last party before everyone scattered for college. He'd called me at 10:30. "Dad, I'm heading home. Jennifer's car broke down, so I'm giving her a ride." "Drive safe, son. Love you." "Love you too, Dad." Those were the last words my boy ever spoke to me. The call came at 1:14 in the morning. Sheriff Patterson's voice was gentle but firm. There'd been an accident on Route 47. A drunk driver crossed the center line. Head-on collision. Tommy died on impact. Jennifer survived with minor injuries because Tommy had swerved at the last second, taking the brunt of the hit on his side. I remember Sarah's scream when I told her. It was primal, the sound of a mother's heart breaking. She collapsed in my arms and we sank to the floor together, holding each other while our perfect life shattered into a million pieces. The funeral was a blur. Half the town showed up. Tommy's teammates carried his casket. Jennifer sat in the front row, her arm in a sling, tears streaming down her face. Marcus stood beside me, trying to be strong, but I could feel him shaking. Sarah had insisted on one strange thing. She wanted Tommy buried with his cell phone. "He loved that phone," she said, clutching the silver flip phone. "Remember how excited he was when we got it for him last Christmas? He should have it with him." I thought it was odd, but grief makes people do unusual things. The funeral director assured us it was fine, and so Tommy was buried with that phone tucked beside him in the casket. What struck me as stranger was what happened after. The very next day, Sarah insisted we sell Tommy's car immediately. "I can't look at it, Sean. Please, just get rid of it." Within a week, she donated all of Tommy's belongings. His football trophies, his clothes, everything, except what we'd put in the casket. She said keeping his things was too painful, but something felt off about her urgency. When I suggested keeping his Letterman jacket, she nearly became hysterical. "No, everything has to go. I can't heal with his things around. Please, Sean, if you love me, you'll do this for me." So I did. Because what else could I do? My wife was drowning in grief, and I'd have done anything to ease her pain. Looking back now, I should have asked more questions. Should have wondered why she was so desperate to erase every trace of our son, except for that phone buried 6 feet under. But hindsight is 20/20. And back then, I was just a father trying to hold his family together while nursing his own broken heart. I threw myself into work, taking on bigger projects, working 16-hour days. anything to avoid coming home to a house that felt empty, even when we were all there. Marcus retreated into his art. He painted Tommy over and over, capturing him in ways photographs never could. The joy in his eyes when he scored a touchdown. The concentration on his face when he helped Marcus with math homework. The easy smile he wore when Jennifer was around. Sarah changed in ways I couldn't quite define. She'd always been organized, but now she became obsessively so. She reorganized everything in the house, created new filing systems, shredded old documents. When I asked about it, she said staying busy kept her sane. 3 months after the funeral, I found her in Tommy's empty room at 3 a.m, just standing there, staring at nothing. "Sarah, honey, what are you doing?" She turned to me, and for a moment I swear I didn't recognize her. Her eyes were cold, calculating. Then she blinked, and my Sarah was back, collapsing into my arms. "I miss him so much, Sean. Sometimes I think I hear his voice." "I know, baby, I miss him too." But there was something in her voice that didn't match her words. A disconnect between what she was saying and what her body was telling me. I wrote it off as grief playing tricks on my mind. After all, we were all walking wounded, trying to navigate a world that no longer made sense. The drunk driver, a man named Carl Brennan, died at the scene too. In some ways, that made it worse. There was no one to rage at, no trial to focus on, no justice to pursue. Just an empty hole where my son used to be, and a family trying to pretend we could someday be whole again. I remember standing at Tommy's grave a year after the accident. The headstone read, "Thomas Sean Morrison, beloved son, and brother, may his light shine forever." I'd brought fresh flowers, the yellow roses he always got for his mother on her birthday. "I'm trying to hold it together, buddy," I told the stone. "But your mom's slipping away from me, and Marcus barely comes home from art school. I don't know how to fix this." A crow landed on the headstone, cocked its head at me, then flew away. I took it as a sign that Tommy heard me. Stupid, maybe, but when you're grieving, you look for messages everywhere. What I didn't know then was that the real message would come 19 years later, at 2:17 in the morning, from a phone that should have been nothing but corroded metal and dead circuits deep in the ground. The 5 years following Tommy's death were like watching a slow-motion car crash. You can see the impact coming, but you're powerless to stop it. Sarah and I became strangers, living in the same house, two ghosts haunting rooms that used to ring with our boys' laughter. Sarah's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She'd leave the house at odd hours, claiming she needed to drive to clear her head. Her cell phone was practically glued to her hand, but whenever it rang, she'd glance at me nervously before stepping outside to answer. When I asked who called so often, she'd wave it off as work stuff. She'd taken a job at a medical billing company, said staying home made her think too much about what we'd lost. I tried to bridge the gap between us, suggested counseling, planned romantic dinners, even booked a cruise to the Caribbean, thinking maybe a change of scenery would help us reconnect. She went through the motions, smiled in all the right places, but her eyes remained distant, focused on something I couldn't see. Marcus noticed it too when he came home from art school for holidays. He'd pull me aside in his old studio. "Dad, is Mom okay? She seems different." "She's still grieving, son. We all are." "No, this is something else." She asked me 3 times if I'd kept any of Tommy's things. When I showed her a sketch I'd done of him, she got angry, said I needed to let the past go. That struck me as odd. Sarah had been the one who used to stand in Tommy's empty room. Now she acted like his memory was something to be buried deeper than his body. The construction business was booming. I'd landed contracts for 2 major office complexes and a shopping center. Money wasn't an issue, but I'd have traded every dollar to have my family back. I hired a general manager to handle day-to-day operations and tried to spend more time at home, hoping my presence would somehow heal whatever was breaking between Sarah and me. One evening, I came home early to surprise her with dinner from her favorite restaurant. Her car was in the driveway, but the house was quiet. I found her in our bedroom, hunched over her laptop, typing furiously. When she heard my footsteps, she slammed it shut and spun around, face flushed. "Sean, I didn't expect you home. Wanted to surprise you. What were you working on?" "Just medical billing codes. Boring stuff." She was lying. After 25 years of marriage, you know when your spouse is lying. But I was too tired to push it. Too afraid maybe that if I pushed too hard, whatever thread still connected us would snap completely. The thread snapped anyway. It was a Thursday morning in October, 5 years and 3 months after we buried Tommy. Sarah sat across from me at the breakfast table, hands wrapped around a coffee mug, like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "I want a divorce, Sean." The words hung in the air between us. I set down my fork, scrambled eggs suddenly tasteless in my mouth. "Sarah, please, we can work through this. For Marcus, if nothing else." "Marcus is 21. He doesn't need us to stay together for his sake." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I've already seen a lawyer. I'm not asking for much, just what's fair." "Fair, Sarah, we've been married 30 years. We've lost our son. And now, you want to throw away everything else." "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm trying to save what's left of myself." She stood up, coffee untouched. "I'll be staying with my sister until we can figure out arrangements." She left that afternoon with 2 suitcases and 30 years of marriage reduced to a manila envelope of legal documents. Marcus drove down from Chicago the next day, found me sitting in his old studio, staring at a painting he'd done of our family the summer before Tommy died. 4 smiling faces unaware of the tragedy waiting around the corner. "Dad, I'm so sorry." "Did you know? Did she tell you?" He shook his head. "But I'm not surprised. Mom's been different since Tommy died. It's like she's been running from something." The divorce proceeded with unexpected speed. Sarah asked for half of everything, which was fair under Indiana law. What wasn't fair was how quickly she seemed to have her new life arranged. Within a month of our divorce being finalized, she was engaged to Robert Sterling, a pharmaceutical executive she'd apparently met through her job. I did some digging. Robert Sterling was 55, wealthy, with connections throughout the medical industry. He owned a company called Sterling Biomedical that specialized in experimental treatments for neurological conditions. What raised my hackles was how fast everything moved. Normal people don't get engaged a month after divorce, which meant she'd known him longer, maybe much longer. I hired a private investigator partly out of wounded pride, mostly because something felt deeply wrong. His name was Jack Hoffman, a former cop who specialized in matrimonial investigations. What he found made my blood run cold. "Your ex-wife and Sterling go back at least 7 years. Jack told me over coffee at a diner on the outskirts of town. Phone records show regular contact, starting about 2 years after your son's death." "Affair." "Almost certainly, but here's where it gets strange." He slid a photograph across the table. It showed Robert Sterling at what looked like a medical conference. Sterling had a son, David. Kid overdosed 8 years ago, right around the time your boy died. But here's the thing, there's no death certificate on file for David Sterling. And get this, Robert reported him as a missing person 3 days after your son's accident. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. Just find it curious that one man loses a son to overdose, reports him missing instead of dead. Another man's son dies in a car accident. Now those two are married and living very comfortably on settlement money and life insurance payouts. Tommy's life insurance went to his college fund. We donated it to the Scholarship Foundation." Jack pulled out another paper. "That's the policy you knew about. Seems there were 2 others. One Sarah took out 6 months before the accident, another through Sterling's company as part of some employee benefit program she was never actually eligible for." My hands shook as I studied the documents. $3 million in life insurance payouts I'd known nothing about. Policies that made no sense for an 18-year-old boy to have. This is insurance fraud. If you can prove it. But your son is dead, death certificate, all legal and proper. Insurance companies paid out. Case closed as far as they're concerned. But it wasn't closed for me. I spent the next months digging deeper, following paper trails, asking questions that made people uncomfortable. Sarah and Robert had moved into a mansion on the north side of Indianapolis, the kind of place that had gates and security cameras. She'd traded her Honda for a Mercedes shopping at stores, where a handbag cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Marcus helped when he could, using his art world connections to gather information. He'd become successful in his own right, with galleries in Chicago and New York showing his work. But success hadn't dimmed his need for answers about why our family fell apart. "Dad, I ran into Jennifer at a gallery opening," he told me one evening. "She's an FBI agent, now specializing in insurance fraud. She asked about Mom." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That Mom got rich quick after Tommy died, and we don't understand how." Jennifer Walsh, Tommy's girl. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. Knowing she'd gone into law enforcement, specifically fraud investigation, felt like more than coincidence. Maybe she'd been asking questions too. Maybe she'd never believed the story we'd all been told. As I sat in my empty house that night, surrounded by boxes of financial documents and phone records, I thought about Tommy. About the boy who'd carried his team to victory, who'd helped his brother with homework, who'd loved a girl named Jennifer with the kind of pure heart only the young possess. Something had happened the night he died. Something more than a drunk driver on Route 47. And Sarah knew what it was. The woman I'd loved, the mother of my children, had secrets that went deeper than an affair. Secrets worth $3 million and a new life built on our son's grave. But secrets have a way of clawing their way to the surface. And 19 years later, when that phone rang at 2:17 in the morning, I realized some secrets refused to stay buried. I sat in my living room cell phone, clutched in my trembling hand, those 3 words echoing in my mind. Tommy wasn't dead. The call had lasted only seconds before the line went silent. No explanation, no proof, just that gravelly whisper that could have been anyone. Could have been a cruel prank. Should have been impossible. But that number, Tommy's number. I'd kept paying for that line for 3 years after his death, unable to let go of that last connection. Sarah had finally convinced me to cancel it. Said I was torturing myself. The number should have been reassigned to someone else decades ago. I called back immediately. The phone rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Not a generic message, but Tommy's voice, young and cheerful. "Hey, you've reached Tommy. Leave a message and I'll hit you back." My son's voice. 20 years dead, and here was his voice preserved like an insect in amber. I called again. Same result. Then the number stopped accepting calls altogether. Sleep was impossible. I spent the rest of the night at my computer, searching for answers. How could a deactivated number suddenly work again? According to the phone company's website, numbers could be reactivated, but only by the original account holder, or with proper documentation. The original account holder was me, and I hadn't reactivated anything. By morning, I'd made a decision. I drove to the phone company's regional office, demanded to speak with a manager. A young woman named Beth pulled up the account history. "This is unusual," she said, frowning at her screen. "The number was reactivated last month, using the original owner's social security number." "Whose social?" "Thomas S. Morrison." She looked up at me. "Is that you?" "That's my son. He died 20 years ago." Her face paled. "I'm sorry, but someone used his information to reactivate this line. They had his social birth date, even answered security questions about his first pet and mother's maiden name. Buddy the Beagle and Sarah's maiden name Palmer, things any family member would know. But Sarah had remarried. Marcus lived in Chicago, and I certainly hadn't done this. "Can you tell me where the reactivation request came from?" "I shouldn't, but..." She glanced around, then whispered, "Billing addresses in Whitefish, Montana. The activation was done online, but the IP address traces to the same area." Montana. I'd never been to Montana. Neither had Tommy, as far as I knew. I thanked Beth and left with a printout she wasn't supposed to give me. Back home, I pulled up maps of Whitefish. Small town population around 8,000, nestled near Glacier National Park. Why there? I spent 3 days researching, barely sleeping, living on coffee and determination. The address linked to the phone account led to a P.O. box rental service. Dead end. But I found something else interesting. Sterling Biomedical Roberts Company had a research facility 40 miles from Whitefish. They called it a therapeutic retreat center for patients with traumatic brain injuries. Too many coincidences. Tommy's phone, Roberts Company, Montana. I booked a flight for the next morning. Marcus called as I was packing. "Dad, you sound terrible. What's going on?" I told him everything. The silence on his end stretched so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. "Dad, that's insane." "I know how it sounds." "No, I mean, it's insane because Jennifer called me yesterday. Said she's been investigating Sterling Biomedical for years. Something about insurance fraud and fake deaths. Dad, what if?" He couldn't finish the sentence. Neither could I. The possibility was too enormous, too impossible. But I was going to Montana anyway. The flight felt endless. I rented a car in Kalispell and drove toward Whitefish Mountains, rising around me like ancient guardians. The retreat center wasn't on any tourist maps, but I found it using the coordinates from a medical supply delivery receipt I'd uncovered online. It looked innocent enough. A sprawling log structure surrounded by pine forest, the kind of place rich people went to recover from facelifts or addiction. A discreet sign read, "Sterling Neurological Recovery Center." I parked down the road, grateful for the hiking gear I'd bought as cover. I spent 2 days watching from the forest. Patients walked the grounds with medical staff. Most moved slowly, some with obvious neurological impairments. On the third morning, I saw him. He emerged from a side door wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. Taller than I remembered, broader in the shoulders. But the way he walked, that slight favor of his left leg from a high school football injury, was unmistakable. His hair was shorter, darker with gray at the temples, but when he turned toward the forest, I saw my son's face. "Tommy, my boy, alive." I must have made a sound because his head snapped in my direction. For a moment, our eyes met across 100 yards of space. Recognition flickered across his features, then confusion, then something like fear. He turned and walked quickly back inside. I waited until nightfall, then approached the building. Security was surprisingly light for a medical facility. I found an unlocked service door and slipped inside. The hallways were dimly lit, smelling of pine cleanser and something medicinal. Room numbers suggested patient quarters on the upper floors. I found him on the 3rd floor, sitting by a window in what looked like a common area. He was alone, staring out at the darkness. When he saw me, he stood slowly, like a man approaching a wild animal. "You're him," he said. His voice was deeper, rougher than the boy I remembered. "From the woods. You look familiar." "Tommy." My voice broke on his name. "It's me. It's Dad." He shook his head, backing away. "My name is Thomas Sterling. I don't have a father. I have a medical condition. Traumatic brain injury. Dr. Sterling says my memories are confused. Dr. Sterling is your stepfather. He married your mother after she divorced me. Son, please look at me. You know who I am." Something flickered in his eyes. He raised a hand to his head, wincing. "I get headaches when I try to remember. They said the accident scrambled things. Said I invented a whole life that never existed." "What accident?" "Car crash, 8 years ago. No, wait, that's not right. 20 years. The timeline gets fuzzy. Dr. Sterling gives me treatments to help." I stepped closer, saw him tense. "Tommy, you called me. 3 nights ago. You called from your old phone number." His face went pale. "That was a mistake. I found the phone in storage, thought it was mine. The number just came to me, like muscle memory. When someone answered, I got scared and hung up." "But you said Tommy wasn't dead." "I said that—" He gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. "I don't remember. Sometimes I say things that don't make sense. The doctors say it's part of my condition. I pulled out my wallet, showed him an old family photo. Him, Marcus, Sarah, and me at Lake Michigan, the summer before he died. His hands shook as he took it. This looks like me, but younger. Who are these people? Your brother Marcus, your mother Sarah, and me. We're your family, Tommy. Your real family. He stared at the photo like it might bite him. Then, his legs gave out, and he collapsed into the chair photo clutched to his chest. They said I made it all up. The football games. The brother who painted. The girl named... He stopped, eyes wide. Jennifer. There was a girl named Jennifer. Your fiancée. You were taking her home the night of the accident. No, that's wrong. I was alone. Hit a tree. Dr. Sterling found me, saved my life. I've been here recovering ever since. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. Haven't I? Before I could answer, alarms began blaring. Security had discovered the unlocked door. Tommy jumped up, grabbed my arm. You have to go. If they find you here, Dr. Sterling has connections. Police judges. They'll say you're stalking a patient. Come with me. I can't. They'll find me. I wear this. He showed me an ankle monitor. For my own safety, they say. But you have to go, now. He pushed me toward a stairwell. There's a service exit in the basement. Go left at the bottom. Tommy, I'll come back for you. He pressed the photo back into my hand. I don't remember being Tommy, but sometimes in dreams, I remember having a father who loved me. Maybe that was you. Security footsteps echoed in the hallway. I ran, taking the stairs 3 at a time, burst out into the Montana night. Behind me, the facility lit up like a prison during an escape. I made it to my car, drove without lights, until I reached the main road. In my motel room, I stared at the family photo Tommy had held. 4 faces smiling in sunshine, unaware that in weeks our family would shatter. But Tommy hadn't died in that crash. Someone had taken him, convinced him his life was a lie, kept him prisoner for 20 years. And I was going to get him back. I couldn't leave Montana, not with Tommy so close. I moved to a different motel, paid cash, and planned my next move. Breaking into the facility again was impossible. They'd tripled security after my visit. But there were other ways to gather information. I positioned myself at the coffee shop in Whitefish, where staff from the facility often stopped before shifts. Listened to conversations, learned names, routines. After a week, I knew that Thomas Sterling was a special patient, kept separate from others, seen only by Dr. Sterling himself and a select few staff members. One nurse, Carol, seemed troubled by the arrangement. I overheard her telling a colleague that Thomas's treatment protocol made no sense for a TBI patient. 20 years of the same medications, no improvement? It's like they're keeping him stable, not trying to heal him. I followed Carol to the parking lot, approached carefully. Excuse me, I couldn't help overhearing. I'm a medical journalist investigating long-term care facilities. Would you be willing to talk off the record? She hesitated. Then something in my desperation must have convinced her. We met at a diner outside town. I shouldn't be talking to you, she said, hands wrapped around her coffee cup. But something's wrong at that place. Thomas Sterling, he's not like the other patients. His medical files are sealed. Only Dr. Sterling can access them. What's his condition? That's just it. Physically, he's fine. Brain scans show old trauma consistent with a car accident, but nothing that should cause ongoing memory issues. Yet, he gets daily injections of something. I tried to check what it was once. Got written up for exceeding my authority. Do you think he's being held against his will? She leaned in, voice dropping. Last year, another nurse quit suddenly. Before she left, she told me Thomas once asked her to mail a letter. She was going to do it, but Dr. Sterling found out. She was gone the next day, and the letter disappeared. Did she see what was in it? An address in Indianapolis. Something about needing help remembering who he really was. My heart pounded. Tommy had been trying to reach out, trying to remember. I thanked Carol and gave her my number in case she learned anything else. That night, I called Marcus, told him to use his connections, find everything he could about David Sterling's supposed death 8 years ago. Meanwhile, I'd work on getting Tommy out. 3 days later, opportunity knocked. The facility was hosting a family visitation day. Patients' relatives could visit, take them on supervised outings. I couldn't go myself, but I had an idea. I called the one person who might help Jennifer Walsh. Mr. Morrison. Her voice was professional, guarded. Marcus said you might call. Jennifer, I found him. Tommy's alive. Silence. Then, that's impossible. I told her everything. The phone call, the facility, my encounter with Tommy. When I finished, she was quiet so long, I thought she'd hung up. I've been investigating Sterling Biomedical for 5 years, she finally said. Insurance fraud, fake research data, but nothing like this. If what you're saying is true, help me get him out. You're FBI, you have authority. Not without evidence. And not in Montana without coordinating with local offices. But I can come as a civilian. See for myself. 2 days later, Jennifer arrived in Whitefish. She'd changed from the teenage girl who'd loved my son. Now 38, she carried herself with the confidence of someone used to dealing with criminals. But when I showed her photos I'd taken of Tommy at the facility, her professional mask cracked. My God, it really is him. We formulated a plan. Jennifer would pose as a potential investor in Sterling's research, get a tour of the facility. I'd wait nearby as backup. What we didn't expect was for Tommy to recognize her. Jennifer had just entered the main building when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. White pickup truck. Loading dock. 5 minutes. I drove to the facility's rear entrance. A white pickup sat idling. The door opened and Tommy slid in, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. Drive, please. I pulled out checking mirrors for pursuit. How did you... The woman, Jennifer. I saw her through a window and I remembered. Not everything, but enough. Her smile. The way she tilts her head when she's thinking. I used an emergency exit. We have maybe 10 minutes before they notice. Where should we go? There's a hunting cabin about 15 miles north. Dr. Sterling owns it, but rarely uses it. We can talk there. The cabin was rustic, but clean. Tommy moved through it with familiarity, starting a fire in the wood stove. In the flickering light, I could see my son clearly. Older, weathered, but undeniably Tommy. I've been remembering things, he said, settling into a chair across from me. Since you showed me that photo. Fragments mostly. Throwing a football. Someone teaching me to drive. A brother who painted portraits. Marcus. He's an artist in Chicago now. Successful. He never stopped painting you. Tommy's eyes filled with tears he quickly wiped away. They told me I invented him. That my brain created false memories to cope with trauma. 20 years of therapy, to accept that my life before the accident was a delusion. What do you actually remember about the accident? He stared into the fire. Driving at night. Headlights coming at me. Then waking up here, Dr. Sterling explaining I'd been in a coma for weeks. My parents were dead, he said. Killed in the crash I caused. He'd taken me in out of charity because his own son had died, and he needed purpose. Tommy, you weren't driving alone. Jennifer was with you. A drunk driver hit you head on. You died protecting her. But I'm not dead. No, which means someone lied about a lot of things. Tommy stood paced to the window. There's something else. The treatments they give me, I think they're designed to suppress memories. When I miss a dose, things get clearer. That's why I found your number. I'd been hiding pills instead of taking them, trying to remember who I was before. We need to get you somewhere safe. Run tests. Prove who you are. They'll find me. This ankle monitor has GPS. I'm surprised they haven't already... Wait. He froze, staring out the window. There are lights coming up the road. 2 vehicles wound through the trees toward the cabin. We had minutes, maybe less. Is there another way out? Tommy grabbed my arm. Dad, listen. I need you to know something. These 20 years, even when I believed their lies, some part of me knew I was loved. That somewhere, someone was missing me. That kept me sane. Tommy, we need to go. No, you need to go. Out the back, there's a trail to an old logging road. Take it. He pulled something from his pocket, pressed it into my hand. A flash drive. Everything I could download from Sterling's computer. Patient files, financial records, treatment protocols. Get it to someone who can use it. I'm not leaving you. You have to. If they catch you here, you'll disappear too. But with that evidence and Jennifer's investigation, you can expose them. Free me legally. Car doors slammed outside. Tommy pushed me toward the back door. Go save me the right way, with the truth. I ran into the forest as flashlights swept the cabin. Behind me, I heard Dr. Sterling's voice, calm and clinical, telling, Thomas. It was time to return for his treatment. Tommy's response was too quiet to hear, but I knew he was buying me time. I found my car and drove toward Whitefish Flash Drive, burning in my pocket. Jennifer was waiting at the motel, pacing anxiously. They hustled me out after 15 minutes. Said there was a medical emergency. Sean, I saw treatment rooms that looked more like prison cells. And their research data. It doesn't make sense. They're not trying to cure anything. I handed her the flash drive. Then maybe this will explain what they are doing. She plugged it into her laptop. File after file opened. Medical records, financial transactions, patient profiles. Her face grew paler with each document. Sean, they're not treating real TBI patients. These are people who were supposed to be dead. Insurance payouts, estate settlements, all completed. But the people are alive, kept sedated, and controlled. How many? At least a dozen. All with wealthy families or large insurance policies. She pulled up financial records. Sterling Biomedical has been collecting monthly payments for their care, while the families collect death benefits. It's a massive fraud scheme. And look at this. She opened a file labeled T. Morrison, Initial Assessment. It was dated 3 days after Tommy's accident. The notes described an 18-year-old male severely injured but alive, ideal candidate for Project Lazarus. Project Lazarus. Fake their deaths, collect insurance, keep them alive but memory suppressed. Sterling gets paid for their care. Families get rich from insurance. Everyone wins except the victims. Sarah knew she had to. Jennifer pulled up another document. Transfer orders signed by S. Morrison, authorizing Tommy's transport to Montana while he was supposedly in the morgue. She didn't just know, she arranged it. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My wife hadn't just left me. She'd sold our son into 20 years of medical imprisonment for money. The woman I'd loved, who'd borne my children, had chosen wealth over her own child's life. We have enough to bring them down, Jennifer said. But we need Tommy safe first. Once I submit this evidence, Sterling will know we're on to him. He's back at the facility, under their control again. Not for long. She pulled out her FBI credentials. I wasn't here officially before. Now I am. And I'm calling in backup. Sterling Biomedical is about to have a very bad day. But first, we had one more piece of the puzzle to uncover. How had a teenage boy supposedly killed in a car crash ended up breathing in Montana, while another body was buried in his place? Jennifer worked through the night coordinating with FBI field offices in Montana and Indiana. By dawn, she had authorization for search warrants and a team assembling. But I couldn't wait. The financial records on Tommy's flash drive had revealed something that demanded immediate investigation payments from Sterling Biomedical to a funeral home in Indianapolis, the same funeral home that had handled Tommy's burial 20 years ago. I need to go back, I told Jennifer. Someone signed death certificates, prepared a body. Someone helped them fake my son's death. Sean let us handle it. This is a federal investigation now. That's my family's grave plot. If there's someone else in my son's coffin, I have a right to know who. She studied me for a long moment. Give me 6 hours. I'll have agents meet you in Indianapolis. Don't do anything alone. But I was already booking my flight. Some things a father has to face himself. Marcus met me at Indianapolis Airport. his face drawn with exhaustion. "Dad, I've been digging into David Sterling's disappearance. Found his ex-girlfriend. She says David overdosed at a party 3 days before Tommy's accident. She saw the body. But when she called 911, Robert Sterling showed up instead of paramedics, told everyone David was at a private treatment facility. He used his dead son to replace ours." "That's what I'm thinking, but we need proof." We drove to Riverside Cemetery, where 3 generations of Morrisons lay buried. Tommy's grave sat beneath an oak tree Sarah had chosen. "So he can have shade," she'd said through tears. Now I wondered if any of her grief had been real. The FBI agents were waiting Agent Chen and Agent Brooks, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Morrison," Chen said, "we have authorization for exhumation based on evidence of insurance fraud and identity theft. The process will take several hours. Are you sure you want to be here? I've waited 20 years to know the truth. I'm not leaving now." The cemetery crew worked methodically, setting up privacy screens, documenting each stage. When the backhoe broke through the first layer of earth, my hands started shaking. Marcus gripped my shoulder. "We can wait in the car, Dad." "No, I need to see." It took 3 hours to reach the vault. Another hour to lift it out, crack the seal. The funeral director, an elderly man named Hollis, who'd been subpoenaed that morning, supervised the opening of the casket. What we found inside changed everything. The body was that of a young man, but decomposition and time had taken their toll. What remained was skeletal, but intact, enough for identification. Agent Brooks photographed everything while a forensic team collected samples. "Dental records will give us confirmation," Chen said. "But Mr. Hollis, do you remember this burial?" Hollis, pale and trembling, nodded. "The Morrison boy. Car accident. Closed casket at the family's request. The mother was insistent about handling arrangements quickly." "Who identified the body before burial?" "The county coroner at the time, Dr. Mitchell Vance. But he retired years ago. Died last spring." "How convenient." But Chen had done his homework. We pulled Dr. Vance's records. He noted severe facial trauma, making visual identification impossible. Identity was confirmed via personal effects and family testimony. "Sarah identified him," I said. "She went alone. Told me it would be too traumatic for me to see him like that." Mr. Hollis, Brooks asked, "Do you recall anything unusual about the preparation?" The old man hesitated. "Mrs. Morrison provided clothing for the deceased, and she insisted on a specific item being placed in the casket." "The cell phone?" "Yes. Said it was sentimental. But she also—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "She paid cash. A substantial sum. Said she wanted everything handled with discretion, no questions asked." "You took a bribe to bury someone without proper identification." "I was told the identification was complete. The coroner had signed off. I just accommodated the family's wishes for privacy." While the forensic team worked, my phone rang. Jennifer calling from Montana. "Sean, we've raided the facility. 12 patients recovered, all in various stages of memory suppression. Tommy's safe in FBI protective custody. And we arrested Robert Sterling." "What about Sarah?" "Still looking for her. Neighbors say she and Robert left for a vacation 2 days ago. Their passports were used to fly to Mexico City, but the trail goes cold there." Of course she ran. Somehow, she'd known this was coming. I told Jennifer about the exhumation, the body that wasn't Tommy's. "DNA will confirm it, but everything points to this being David Sterling. Sean, your wife, and Sterling conspired to fake your son's death, bury Sterling's son in his place, and steal millions in insurance money while keeping Tommy prisoner for 20 years. The magnitude of the betrayal was staggering. Every moment of Sarah's grief had been performance. Every tear at the funeral shed over someone else's child. She'd looked me in the eye for years, knowing our son was alive, drugged, and imprisoned 1,000 miles away. "Why not just kill him?" I asked. "Why keep him alive?" Sterling's research. He'd been working on memory suppression drugs needed test subjects. What better subject than someone who's officially dead? No oversight, no questions. Plus, he could bill insurance companies for Tommy's care at inflated rates. Your son was worth more alive than dead. By evening, the forensics team had enough preliminary data. The body in Tommy's grave showed signs of drug overdose, consistent with David Sterling's alleged cause of death. Bone measurements matched David's medical records, not Tommy's. We reburied David Sterling that night under his own name this time. I said a prayer for a boy I'd never met, whose death had been exploited as thoroughly as my son's life. Marcus placed a small stone marker until a proper headstone could be arranged. "He deserves to be remembered correctly," Marcus said. "Another victim in this nightmare." Agent Chen drove us back to my house. "Mr. Morrison, we'll need detailed statements from you and Marcus. This case is going to be massive. Dozens of insurance companies defrauded families, destroyed lives, stolen. Your testimony will be crucial." "What about Tommy? When can I see him?" "He's being medically evaluated, withdrawn from whatever drugs they were using. It'll take time. But he's asking for you, remembering more each day." That night, Marcus and I sat in his old studio, surrounded by 20 years of paintings. Tommy's face stared back from dozens of canvases frozen at 18, while the real Tommy had aged in captivity. "I'm going to testify," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes to put Mom and Sterling away forever. She chose money over her own son, over all of us. Part of me still can't believe it. 30 years of marriage, and I never really knew her at all." "You knew who you thought she was. We all did. But that woman, the one who baked cookies and helped with homework, and cried at our graduations, maybe she never really existed." My phone buzzed. Unknown international number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello, Sean." Sarah's voice calm as ever. "I hear you've been busy." "Sarah, where are you?" "Somewhere you'll never find me. I wanted you to know it wasn't personal. Robert needed a test subject for his research. I needed financial security. Tommy was just convenient. He was our son. He was going to leave anyway. College, marriage, his own life. This way, I got to keep the money that would have gone to his education, his wedding, his future. A fair trade, I thought." "You're insane." "I'm practical. You always were too sentimental, Sean. It's why I had to handle things myself. Give Tommy my love when you see him. Tell him Mommy always knew what was best." The line went dead. I tried calling back, but the number was already disconnected. Marcus had heard everything, his face twisted with rage and disgust. She called him convenient, her own son. But I was already dialing Jennifer. "Sarah just called. International number. Can you trace it?" "We'll try. Sean, she's taunting you. Trying to hurt you one more time." Maybe. But Sarah had made one mistake in her perfect plan. She'd left Tommy alive, and now he was free, remembering who he was ready to testify against the woman who'd sold him for silver. The mother he'd loved was as dead as the boy we'd buried. But the son I'd mourned was alive, and that was the only truth that mattered. 3 weeks passed before I could see Tommy. The FBI kept him in protective custody, while doctors weaned him off 20 years of memory-suppressing drugs. Jennifer called with regular updates. He was remembering more, providing detailed testimony, identifying other victims at the facility. But I needed to see my son. When the reunion finally came, it was in a federal building in Denver. Tommy sat in a small conference room, thinner than when I'd seen him in Montana, but his eyes were clearer. When I entered, he stood slowly, uncertainty written across his face. "Hi, Dad." 2 words, but they broke the dam. I crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled him into my arms. He tensed, then relaxed, and suddenly we were both crying, 20 years of stolen time pouring out in that sterile room. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't remember sooner, didn't fight harder." Don't you dare apologize. None of this was your fault. Marcus had flown in from Chicago. When he entered, Tommy's face lit up with wonder. You really did become an artist. I remembered you painting, but they said it was a delusion. Been painting you for 20 years, brother. Mom hated it. Marcus hugged him fiercely. God, I missed you. We spent hours in that room, filling in gaps. Tommy remembered fragments now, the crash waking in pain, Sarah visiting him in a medical facility before he was moved to Montana. She told him the family was dead, that he'd killed us all driving drunk. The guilt had made him easier to control. She said she was a nurse, taking pity on me. I was so drugged, so confused. When the memories didn't match what they told me, I thought I was going insane. Jennifer entered with a laptop and evidence files. We've tracked down 8 of the 12 victims from the facility, all reunited with families who thought they were dead. But Tommy, we need your help with something bigger. Your mother and Sterling are still free. I'll do whatever it takes. We've been monitoring their communications. They're planning to return to the U.S. They think they've moved enough money offshore to buy their way out of trouble. We want to let them. You want to arrest them here. We want them to incriminate themselves further, and we need your help. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Tommy would reach out to Sarah, claim he'd escaped FBI custody and needed money to disappear. Play on her ego, her belief that everyone could be bought. Set up a meeting where she'd admit everything while the FBI recorded. Tommy's hands shook as he considered it. I don't know if I can face her. Pretend to still be her son after what she did. You don't have to pretend to love her, Jennifer said. Just pretend to be as greedy as she is. Make her believe you've inherited her practical nature. We spent a week preparing. Tommy practiced his story, worked with FBI behavioral analysts on managing his emotions. Marcus and I provided details about Sarah's patterns, her triggers, what would make her believe the performance. The call was made from a burner phone, Tommy's voice steady despite his white knuckles. Hello, Mom. Sarah's sharp intake of breath was audible over the speaker. Tommy, how did you get this number? I have friends too. Look, I don't have much time. The FBI had me, but I slipped away during a medical transfer. I need help. Tommy, sweetheart, I don't know what they've told you. They told me everything. The insurance money, the fake death, all of it. And honestly, I get it. 20 years of medical care isn't cheap. You did what you had to do. Silence. Then cautiously, you understand? I've had 20 years to think about it. You set me up for life. No work, no stress, just endless care. Maybe the drugs made things fuzzy, but I was comfortable, safe, until that idiot Sean started poking around. He spat my name like it tasted bad. I had to remind myself it was performance. Sarah's voice warmed. I knew you'd understand. You always were practical like me, not like your father with his principles and sentiment. Thing is, Mom, I'm blown now. Can't go back to the facility. Need to disappear for real this time, but that takes money. How much? $200,000, cash. Enough to get me new papers, start fresh somewhere. Tommy, I'm not sure. Or I could always turn myself in. Tell them I was confused, manipulated. That I want to reconcile with my poor, grieving mother, who had nothing to do with any of this. The threat hung in the air. Sarah was trapped between her greed and her fear. Remember that lake house Dad used to rent every summer, Northeast Indiana, private isolated? Meet me there Thursday night. Just you. I don't trust Robert. Tommy, if this is some FBI setup. Mom, I spent 20 years in a medical prison because of you. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for a payday. Like mother, like son, right? Sarah agreed. Thursday, midnight alone. After hanging up, Tommy rushed to the bathroom and vomited. I followed, held his shoulders as he shook. I'm okay, just hearing her voice playing along. It made me sick. You did perfect. She bought it. Thursday came too quickly. The lake house had been wired with cameras and microphones. FBI agents positioned in the woods on the lake, in vehicles along the access road. Tommy waited inside, while Marcus and I watched from a surveillance van with Jennifer. Sarah arrived at 11:45 driving a rental car. She looked older, harder designer clothes and jewelry, unable to mask the calculation in her eyes. She entered carefully, a bag in one hand. "Tommy, sweetheart." Tommy stepped from the shadows. In the grainy surveillance footage, I saw Sarah's face cycle through emotions: joy, fear, suspicion, settling on wary hope. "You look good," she said. "Older but good. 20 years will do that. You look rich." She laughed, brittle and false. "Robert's been good to me. We've built a nice life. Built on my grave." "Don't be dramatic. You're not dead." "I was, to everyone who mattered. Dad, Marcus, Jennifer. You told them I was dead. Buried someone else in my place." Sarah set the bag on the table. "The money you asked for. Unmarked bills. Now, what's the real game here?" "No game. I want out. Away from FBI, away from you, away from all of it. But first, I want to understand. Why? Why not just let me die in that crash?" Sarah sat down, crossing her legs like she was at a business meeting. "You were going to die anyway. The injuries were severe. But Robert had connections, experimental treatments. He could save you, but it would cost. Insurance money covered it." "That's a lie. I've seen my medical records. My injuries weren't life-threatening." "Well, you were unconscious. How would you know?" "Because I remember now. The drunk driver you blamed. He was one of Sterling's employees. The crash was planned. You tried to kill your own son for money." Sarah's mask slipped. "It wasn't supposed to be you. Robert's son was already dead from an overdose. We were going to stage a single-car accident, collect on his insurance. But then you called, said you were driving Jennifer home. Wrong place, wrong time." My stomach turned. Even in her evil, there'd been incompetence. Tommy was never meant to be the victim. "So you improvised, switched the bodies collected on my insurance instead." "Robert couldn't let his son be found with drugs in his system. Would have ruined his reputation. And you were right there, unconscious, perfect solution. We'd keep you sedated for a few months, then quietly let you go. Tell you that you'd been in a coma, family dead, start fresh. But you didn't let me go. Robert's research proved more valuable with a long-term subject. And the money kept coming. Insurance settlements, monthly care payments, disability funds. You were a goldmine, Tommy." "What about Dad, Marcus? Didn't you feel anything?" Sarah shrugged. "Sean was always too emotional. Would have spent everything trying to save you, bankrupted us with medical bills. I made the practical choice. As for Marcus, he adapted. Children are resilient." Tommy stood slowly. "I want the account numbers. Everything you stole." "That wasn't part of the deal." "It is now, or I walk out of here and straight to the FBI." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "You really are my son." "All right." She pulled out a paper, started writing. "Swiss accounts, Cayman Islands, even some cryptocurrency. 20 years of careful planning. Your share would be about 10 million. My share, I'm taking it all." "Don't be greedy, darling." That's when the doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Sarah's shock lasted only a second before the cold mask returned. "Hello, Sarah," Jennifer said, stepping inside. "Special Agent Walsh, FBI. You're under arrest for insurance fraud, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges I'll detail at the station." Sarah looked at Tommy. "You set me up." "Like mother, like son," he replied. "Except I'm nothing like you. Never was, never will be." As they handcuffed her, Sarah's composure finally cracked. "I gave you life, I saved you. You'd be dead without me. I was dead because of you. 20 years dead, but I'm alive now, and you're going to pay for every stolen day." They let her out, still screaming about ingratitude and betrayal. Tommy collapsed into a chair, drained. Marcus and I rushed in from the van. "You did it," Marcus said. "It's over." But Tommy shook his head. "Sterling's still out there, and the other families need closure too. It's not over yet." He was right. Sarah's arrest made headlines, But Robert Sterling remained hidden. The FBI tracked him to Costa Rica, but extradition was complicated. We needed something more. That's when Tommy remembered the cabin in Montana, Sterling's private retreat, where he'd kept his most sensitive files. Including Tommy, believed evidence of other crimes that Costa Rica couldn't ignore. I spent time there during my good behavior periods. He thought I was too drugged to pay attention. But I listened, learned. I know where he hides things. Jennifer couldn't officially sanction a civilian operation, but she also couldn't stop Tommy from taking a vacation to Montana with his father and brother to process his trauma in nature. We flew to Montana 3 days later. The cabin was exactly as Tommy remembered, isolated and secure. Too secure for a simple retreat. We found Sterling's hidden office in the basement, behind what looked like a wine cellar. Fireproof filing cabinets filled with documents he hadn't trusted to digital storage. Paranoid bastard, Marcus muttered, photographing pages. But thorough. We found evidence of bribes to Colombian officials, money laundering for cartels, even human trafficking connections. Sterling had been more than a corrupt doctor. He'd been an international criminal, using his medical facilities as cover. "This is it," Tommy said, holding up a ledger. "Names, dates, amounts, every dirty deal for 20 years. We copied everything then. Tommy did something unexpected. He called Sterling's emergency number 1 he'd memorized during captivity. "Hello, Robert. It's your favorite patient." Sterling's voice was cautious. "Thomas, how did you get this number? You trained me well. 20 years of listening to your calls. I know all your secrets now, including the Colombians who'd love to know where their missing money went. What do you want?" "Justice. Turn yourself in or I send everything to your business partners. The real ones. The ones who cut off fingers for stealing." "You're bluffing." Tommy read off 3 names, account numbers, amounts stolen. Sterling's breathing grew ragged. 48 hours, Tommy said. "Then I make some calls." We left Montana with boxes of evidence. 24 hours later, Robert Sterling walked into the U.S. Embassy in San Jose, requesting extradition. He confessed to everything, desperate for federal protection from the cartels he'd cheated. The trials took 2 years. Sarah got 35 to life. Sterling got life without parole. 11 other conspirators, including funeral director Hollis, received various sentences. The victims' families received settlements from seized assets. Not enough to compensate for 20 years of grief, but something. Tommy struggled with recovery. 2 decades of drugs and manipulation left scars. But he fought through therapy, reconnected with life. He even reached out to Jennifer, though they both knew too much had changed for simple reunion. "We're different people now," she told him over coffee. "But I'm glad you're alive. Glad you're free." "Thanks to you, all of you." He found purpose in helping other victims of long-term fraud and abuse. Started a foundation with the settlement money, focusing on missing persons cases that didn't add up. Within a year, he'd helped expose 3 similar schemes, reuniting families torn apart by greed. Marcus painted a new portrait, our family at the lake house, all 4 of us together. Not as we were, but as we are now. Scarred, but whole, broken but healing. Sarah's absence noted only by the extra light in the composition, the space where darkness used to live. The first Thanksgiving after the trials felt surreal. Tommy, Marcus, and I gathered at the lake house, the same place where Sarah had been arrested 2 years earlier. We'd debated the location, but Tommy insisted. "We need to reclaim it," he said. "Make new memories to override the bad ones." Jennifer joined us, along with her husband Paul and their 2 kids. She and Tommy had found their way to friendship built on shared trauma and mutual respect. The romance of youth was gone, but something deeper had taken its place. "You know what I'm grateful for," Tommy said as we sat around the table. "Second chances. Not many people get to die and come back. Even fewer get to help others do the same." His foundation had grown beyond our wildest hopes. 3 full-time investigators, partnerships with law enforcement across 12 states, 15 families reunited in just 18 months. The Morrison Foundation for the Missing had become a beacon of hope for those who refused to accept questionable deaths. Remember the Hartley case? Marcus added, referring to a teenager whose drowning had seemed suspicious. Tommy's team discovered she'd been sold to traffickers by her stepfather, rescued her from a brothel in Phoenix. That girl is in college now because of you. Because of us, Tommy corrected. None of this works alone. After dinner, we walked along the lakeshore. The November air was crisp leaves crunching under our feet. Tommy stopped at a bench we'd installed engraved with a simple message, "In memory of those who were lost, and those who were found." "I've been thinking about Mom," he said quietly. Marcus tensed. We rarely spoke of Sarah, who was serving her sentence in federal prison in Texas. "She wrote me last month. First time since the trial. Said she was sorry." "She's sorry she got caught," Marcus spat. "Maybe. But she also said something interesting. That Robert manipulated her too. Preyed on her fear of poverty, convinced her I was going to die anyway. Made her believe she was being merciful." I studied my eldest son. "Do you believe her?" "I believe she believes it. People can justify anything if they try hard enough. But here's what I realized. Holding on to anger at her is like taking those memory drugs again. It keeps me trapped in the past." "You're thinking of forgiving her?" Marcus asked, incredulous. "I'm thinking of releasing her hold on me. Forgiveness might come later. Or never. But I won't let hate be my cage anymore." We stood in silence, watching the sun set over the water. 20 years of life had been stolen from us, but we'd found each other again. That had to count for something. The next morning, I drove Tommy to the cemetery. Not to his empty grave, which had been removed, but to David Sterling's proper resting place. Tommy placed flowers on the headstone. We never met, but we're brothers in a weird way. Both of us used by our parents, discarded for convenience. Rest easy, David. Your truth is known now. As we walked back to the car, Tommy's phone rang. One of his investigators, excited about a lead. A soldier declared dead in Afghanistan, but whose death benefits had suspicious irregularities. Tommy's eyes lit up as he took notes. "We'll start digging Monday," he promised. No stone unturned. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned at 18, not the one stolen by betrayal and greed, but something uniquely his. A purpose born from pain, helping others escape the shadows where he'd been trapped. That evening, our family gathered one last time before Marcus returned to Chicago, and Tommy to his work. We sat in my living room, looking through photo albums Jennifer had brought. Pictures of Tommy and her as teenagers, innocent and unaware of what was coming. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that night had gone differently?" Jennifer asked. "If you'd taken a different route or left 5 minutes later?" "Every day," Tommy admitted. "But then I think about the families we've reunited, the victims we've saved. Maybe this was always meant to be my path. Just took a dark detour to get here." Marcus had been painting throughout the visit, capturing moments on canvas. He showed us his latest work. Tommy at his desk, surrounded by case files, phone pressed to his ear. But in the reflection of the window behind him, you could see the ghost of the 18-year-old boy he'd been, football uniform, faded, but present. "We carry our past selves with us," Marcus explained. "But they don't have to define us." As the evening wound down, Tommy stood to make a toast. To survival, to justice, to family that can't be broken by betrayal or buried by lies, and to everyone still out there waiting to be found. May their truth come to light. We raised our glasses, a family reconstructed from fragments, but stronger for the breaking. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, blanketing the world in fresh white. A new beginning, clean and bright. Before everyone left, I pulled Tommy aside. "I'm proud of you, son. Not just for surviving, but for who you've become. Thanks, Dad. For never giving up. For believing I was out there even when it made no sense." "A father knows," I said simply. "Even when the world says otherwise, a father knows." The next week brought a new case, A new family, desperate for answers. Tommy threw himself into the work, with the dedication of someone who understood their pain intimately. Each reunion was a small victory against the darkness that had once consumed him. 6 months later, Sarah died in prison. Heart attack, the official said. Natural causes. Tommy attended the funeral, standing at the back of the empty chapel. I went with him, watching as he said goodbye to the mother she'd never truly been. "I forgive you," he whispered to the closed casket. "Not for you, but for me. Rest now. Your war is over." We left the prison together, drove home in comfortable silence. That night, Tommy called with news. The soldier in Afghanistan had been found alive, held by insurgents who'd been paid to fake his death. Another family reunited, another wrong made right. This is our life now. Not perfect, scarred by loss and betrayal, but meaningful. Tommy runs his foundation. Marcus creates art that heals, and I've found purpose in supporting their work. We gather for holidays, share meals and memories, building new traditions on the ashes of the old. Sometimes late at night, I think about that phone call at 2:17 in the morning. The voice that whispered 3 impossible words: Tommy wasn't dead. In that moment, my world shifted. Truth, emerging from 20 years of lies. But here's what I've learned. Truth isn't just about facts or evidence. It's about the bonds that survive betrayal, the love that endures separation, the instinct that tells a father his child lives, even when the world insists otherwise. It's about second chances and the courage to claim them. Tommy wasn't dead. Neither were we. We were just waiting to be found, to find each other, to discover that some things can't be buried, no matter how deep the grave. And in that discovery, in that resurrection of love and family and hope, we found something worth more than all the stolen money and years. We found our way home. To those of you listening who've lost someone under suspicious circumstances, who've been told to accept the unacceptable, who feel that gnawing certainty that something isn't right, trust your instincts. Search for truth. Never give up. Because sometimes, against all odds and reason, the voice on the other end of the line is exactly who you hope it is. Sometimes the dead aren't dead. Sometimes love is stronger than greed, truth more persistent than lies. Sometimes miracles sound like a phone ringing at 2:17 in the morning. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story touched you, if you've experienced your own loss or miracle, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to hear more stories of hope, justice, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that giving up is not an option, that truth will find its way to light. Until next time, hold your loved ones close, trust your heart, and never stop believing in the impossible. Because sometimes the impossible is just the truth waiting to be discovered.